Hey there, beautiful souls. It's Lexi, and I am here with a guest today for an episode that is really good. I mean, really good. We almost go an hour, but hang on because toward the end, things get even juicier, and there's even some crazy synchronicities that come up. And my guest, Tessa, she even gives me a reading, full on reading while we're recording. And yeah, like I said, there's a synchronicity and it's crazy. And it's just so affirming to experience and even to hear other people experience it. Because if you're at all interested in intuition, um, tapping into your own intuitive abilities, or even mediumship, then this is great. So I'm just going to get to it. Tessa George, she was our guest today. Tessa is a psychic medium and intuitive coach who helps people connect with spirit and listen to their own intuition and understand what is holding them back from living their most authentic and purposeful life. Beautiful, right? She uses these abilities to give evidence of loved ones who have passed, provides Reiki to heal her clients' energy, and gives soul guidance that is loving, healing, and transformative. She creates a space for her clients to feel their emotions and find validation. She has been giving readings professionally for 3 years after her own spiritual awakening led her to quit her job as an aerospace engineer and begin to reactivate her gifts. She wants everyone to know that healing is possible. Everyone has psychic and intuitive abilities, and you have the ability to live a life you absolutely love. And guys, I'm serious. Tessa is so lovely and so down to earth and approachable. And these things, mediumship, intuition, they don't have to be woo woo. They don't have to be weird or scary or taboo. Everybody has these abilities, and Tessa gets into that today. We talk about it a lot, and it's not a religion. It's not witchcraft. It's not anything that needs to scare you away. She is a life coach, a spiritual life coach. Like, how gooey and yummy is that? I felt like it was a therapy session just talking with her for an hour. She just is like a reflection of some of the things that needed to be said and needed to be heard. And she can be that for her clients. She can be that for you. But I'm rambling. Let's get to it. Let's dive into the content. Hi, Tessa. How are you? Thanks for being here.
I'm good. I'm so happy to be here. I'm excited just to chat today and let everybody know just about everything that I do and who I am. So excited. So excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to share what you do too, because I think it's very much needed and more relevant for people today. You're a spiritual life coach, essentially, like an intuition coach. And I don't know about you, but more and more I'm noticing that people are being more open to these discussions and open to touching base with who they are and their soul and why they're here. And yeah, it's beautiful that you are a guide for others to bring them closer back to those points.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and I definitely noticed that too. Obviously, with social media, it's easier to see what people are going through, and I think more and more people are waking up to just what's available to them, and that the life that we thought we had to go down may not be the life that we're actually meant for. I know that's something that I personally experience, and I think, like I said, more and more people are experiencing at this time. And I think it's both because of, like I said, social media is exposing it, but I think just where we're at on Earth in our evolutionary standpoint is there's an opportunity for more people to live in their truest expression. we're reaching higher and higher consciousness. We're really evolving like as a species, and that's being reflected in everything that's happening in the world right now. But yeah, I think we are really just expanding and evolving, like, and I think more people are opening up to their own spiritual gifts, what their intuition is telling them, just what technologies we have as human beings innately within us. So yeah, I'm excited to be able to like just teach that and help people figure that out for themselves and discover it, because it is really powerful. It's a powerful gift to be able to really tap into who we are and what we're meant to do.
Totally. Being able to listen in to make decisions is a beautiful thing. It
Yeah.
takes a lot of like uncertainty out, and
Yeah.
therefore it takes stress out of situations. And essentially, listening to your intuition allows you to make decisions that are best for you and not
Yeah.
decisions in the interest of others. Like what came up a little bit for me as you were talking was, I'm a little curious if there's a generational thing at play. It's like each generation is breaking
Yeah.
free a little bit more and more from like the shackles of like expectations, so to
Yeah.
speak. But I also wonder too if like COVID had something to do with it. I think like mental health awareness
Yeah.
is more and more prevalent and more freely talked about. And people very much in COVID times, like kind of had a lot of that time at home to sit with themselves and
Yeah.
sit with their spaces and think a little bit more about like what they really want. And yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know.
I think both things, like generationally, like you said, we're just living in a different time. I know it I can't say for sure, but I know like my grandma and her line were very intuitive, and I've picked up on this myself when I've connected with them. And then I've had other like psychic mediums say like, I think that somebody else in your family had gifts. I want to say like my grandma's sister was really intuitive, on my mom's side. And I just I think they lived in a time that it wasn't talked about. Nobody really knew about it. My mom's intuitive. She's really good at reading people and just like understanding how people operate. Um, she's not like, psychic like how I am. Well, everyone's psychic, but she's not as like tapped in as I am. But she's definitely very intuitive and can read people and situations very well. And then I think with me, I think I'm meant to kind of, I guess, break that pattern of hiding it or not developing it or not using it, and teach that to other people for, I don't know why yet, but I think we all have like a soul mission that we're here to do. And then, yeah, I think with COVID, yeah, a lot of people really just because, and this is what I talk about a lot in my work, is when you slow down enough and you kind of block out some of the external noise, your inner voice is able to come through so much stronger. And it's not until you really like slow down, either by choice or by something forcing you to slow down, that you begin to really understand like what that voice sounds like, and what it's telling you to do. And I think, that's part of my story as well, is like, and I always tell people like I was super driven, and I was doing great things. I was an engineer, like worked my ass off for years, like all through elementary school, junior high, high school, like took all the AP classes and just was very driven, and then went to college. And I don't think I ever really stopped and asked myself like what it was I wanted. I knew I wanted to like impact people and contribute to, the greater society. And at that time, I was really good at math and physics. So I was like, oh, like I'll just do that. But like when I got to college, I remember being like, I don't want to do engineering forever, but I don't know what else I would do. But I didn't even know how to ask myself the questions. So I just kept like going and taking the next step, and then ended up somewhere where I was like, oh no, this is not what my life is going to look like for the next 40 years. Um, And so I just decided, I was like, and there was kind of some things that happened. Like my roommate was going back home to Oregon. I was super unhappy. So I was like, what am I going to do? Um, and I moved in with my sister, and it forced me to like slow down and ask myself, like, what is it that I want? What is it that I'm being guided to? Like, and it was little things here and there. It wasn't like all of a sudden, like, this gift opened up. It was like all these breadcrumbs of things that I was led to start exploring and practicing that ended up being like what I do now.
Yeah, beautiful. There are so many nuggets in there. I'm like, okay.
You're like, where do I start?
I want to acknowledge or like bring up the fact that you are breaking like generational patterns essentially, and you are like being a speaking voice for a
Yeah,
lineage of intuitives. Like that's beautiful.
thank you.
And I did have a thought too while you were talking about that. I'm like, is it typically like running through a family, or is it only because maybe a family's more open speaking within themselves that they are aware of it, or are they older souls? Like, I'm so curious.
Yeah, I think intuitively what I feel is that most people are born with a certain like soul contract that they are meant to, whether it's a family, um something that they're healing within their family, something they're healing within their community, that I don't even know if you could call it like, I want to say like a family, like kind of like a family curse, but there's somebody that needs to come and do like the trauma healing and do like this work on like you said, intergenerational trauma. It could be like your community, it could be just like the system that you come here to heal. But I don't always necessarily think, like, I feel like everyone's psychic. So it's just a matter of what degree do you need to use your psychic abilities, and how does that manifest itself? Like, what form does that come through? It's not necessarily stuck to like, I need to do readings for people. Like, I could be intuitive and be a consultant at a marketing firm and use my intuitive abilities to come up with designs for people and clients, or like kind of like what you do with interior design. It's like you're using your channeling abilities, and the more open that you are, and I'm sure as you've developed your intuitive gifts, you've found that you channel a little bit more like with your clients and everything too.
Yeah.
And I think it's a societal thing, it's a family thing and a societal thing, because we just kind of have been taught as society. Like, I had imaginary friends when I was little, and I would talk and play with them for hours, and my mom loved it. She was like, she'd be like, oh, okay, like I'd tell her about my friends and she'd be like, oh my gosh, that's so fun. Like, she never made me feel bad about it. But I think when you go to, I just went to school, and you don't learn about that, you don't talk about it, so there wasn't a use for it. So of course I'm not going to like continue to develop it or be open to that, because I there was no use, there was no point in me using that gift.
Hmm. Yeah. And I was thinking about that as you were talking earlier, how, I mean, you say everyone is intuitive, everyone has these abilities. And
Yeah,
even at the beginning, where you're like, your mom's really good at reading people, like that, you could work at a marketing firm and be really good at
yeah,
reading people, but not realize that that's actually an intuitive ability. And it can be used like to your advantage, really, to better your job for your client, or
yeah,
to protect yourself better from like vulture type clients.
yeah,
I don't know,
yeah,
things like that.
yeah,
And that's something that you help people work through, right? Is
yeah,
like developing these intuitive skills that they already have, like innately, everyone has them, but maybe they've been deconditioned since childhood when they
yeah,
did have the imaginary friends to then like school and college, and similar to you, where you were like, you couldn't even tap into that at that point. You didn't know
yeah.
really what you wanted, but you're kind of like a midlife coach in a way of like, let me help you back. Let me hold your
Yeah,
hand and guide
yeah,
you.
100%. And I think, yeah, I think a big part of my work is helping people distinguish between like, what's their fear voice, what's their And your fear voice can be different than like your expectation voice, and they're all kind of in the umbrella of your ego, which is trying to keep you safe, trying to make sure that, your ego has its place. And so there's the fear voice that's like, no, you shouldn't do that. Like, that's not going to be good, or blah, blah, blah. Or the expectation voice is like, well, no, I should do this. Like, I should, just keep doing it this way, which is, there's just a different texture to that. And I talk a lot about that with my clients, is like, each voice is going to have a different texture, a different tone. And it might not be like you hear your intuitive voice is not going to be like a completely different voice. It's going to be you, but it's going to be really subtle. It's going to be really soft until it needs to get loud, until your body starts to react. Like, when I was leaving my engineering job, I remember being like my body, I would get nauseous when I pulled up to the parking lot. Like, I would cry on my way home. And and I had been feeling that like intuitively when my freshman, sophomore year of college, I was saying like, this isn't what I want to do, but I don't know what else I would do. But it was my comfort zone of saying like, well, but I didn't want to explore at that point. Like, I had no incentive. And it wasn't until I was so unhappy at my job that then I was like, all right, I need to go explore other things, because this isn't the option that I thought it was.
So do you think, so for people who are like, different voices in my head, like I don't,
Yeah.
for me personally, like I don't hear other voices, or I'm not sure that there are even like textures, or I don't hear like something out of my left ear or my right ear, which I've heard other people can do. I'm like a very visual intuitive, so like I can close my eyes and drop straight into like wherever and see things. But when it comes to like hearing your ego voice or your expectation voice, like if you're not hearing different tones or textures, is it more of like listening to your body? And like if it's your fear-based voice, like maybe you're feeling it in your chest, or if it's like more of an open voice, you're feeling like a lightness. Is there something to that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something too, where like, until I really started developing my psychic abilities, and I will say I was always very intuitive, even before I do what I do now. Even when I was in engineering, I was, like I said, what my mom taught me how to be really intuitive, and how to really listen to people and how to read situations. And I think I'm just naturally good at that too. But I think my mom helped me kind of grow those gifts. So in that way, like, I always had feelings about things, gut feelings about stuff. But then when I started to do more of like the readings, I had to develop my clairaudience. I had to develop my clairvoyance. And so now when I've noticed that my thoughts come through a little bit differently. Like, and so it just depends on what comes naturally to you. Because of what I do now, the way I feel things and intuit things comes a little bit differently. But some people, it's like, yeah, it's just like a gut feeling, like, ooh, this makes me contract. In my body, I feel tightness when I feel that option, or I think about that person, or, ooh, I don't know, it just doesn't feel good. Or it's like, oh, I feel really light. This makes me feel really good. Like, thinking about that, going down that road feels really expansive to me, feels really invigorating or exciting. So it might not necessarily be like, oh yeah, everyone's going to have voices in their head, but it could be like, if you are more clairaudient, if you're somebody who like enjoys music, or really is a therapist and listens to people, you probably will tend to like hear different thoughts and different voices and different textures. Or if you're a feeling person, you're going to feel it in your body. If you're a visual person, you're going to like see things, like you're going to be able to pick up on colors or see energies. So it's really just like whatever your natural tendencies are, that's how you're going to be able to know like what decision to make.
But each of these skills can be developed.
Yeah.
Right.
So when I first started, like, I really wasn't that clairaudient. And I just kind of told myself, instead of like, it's funny because I already caught it when you said it. You're like, I don't hear things. Don't even affirm that.
Okay.
Not that I'm coaching you right now, but it's interesting because I did the same thing. I was like, I don't ever really hear anything. And then once I stopped saying that, I would say like, yeah, I'm hearing, like, when I'd be in readings to develop it, I'd be like, I'm hearing, and then I'd kind of wait, and then I'd hear things coming through. And every time I'd be like, I'm hearing this, I'm hearing this, I'm hearing this. And that's how I started to develop that, because I just was opening up the energy to get the information in that way. Or you could say, if you want to be more clairvoyant, I'm seeing this, I'm seeing myself going to this vacation, I'm seeing myself at this job, like, and that's how you're going to start to develop those skills, because you're declaring that you're open to receiving whatever that information is in that way.
I love that. And I love that you called me out too, because I
You're
mean, really,
welcome.
like I do hear my own voice in my own head. Like it does tell me things, even as we're
Yeah.
talking. I'm like hearing myself, okay, what's my next question? And I'm like
Yeah.
hearing myself asking you that. So it is there, but I think
Yeah.
maybe there's just this like preconceived idea that it has to be like a voice. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah, and that's the thing, like, even when I do readings and I'm connecting with, somebody's loved one that has passed, I'm not really hearing their voice, like, sometimes it'll be like a laugh will sound like different than mine, or like I'll hear a laugh or like something that distinguishes them, but I'm not really hearing their voice in their tone. I'm hearing it through my thoughts, but I know it's not me because it's something that I wouldn't be thinking about. If that
Sure.
makes sense. Like,
Yeah, it's like, why would hippopotamus pop into your
yeah,
head like out of
literally.
nowhere?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, one time I was doing a reading, and I kept hearing peanuts and seeing peanuts. And I'm like, okay, what? Like, and then, so I just said, I was like, for some reason I'm hearing peanuts and seeing them. And she just started laughing. She's like, he refilled vending machines with peanuts. Like,
Oh
in
my
the,
God.
I was like, oh my God, no way. Like, there's no way I would have. So it's like, why would I be thinking about peanuts? So I know that that's why it's coming through. That's just like a silly example, but
No, but it's really cool. It's really cool, like how validating for you to
yeah,
like know what you're doing is like real and helping
yeah,
people. And then for your client even to be like, oh my gosh, she's really there. Like
yeah,
she
yeah,
hears peanuts.
yeah. So on a trip, she was laughing so hard. She was like, "No way!" Like,
That's awesome.
yeah, it
Okay,
was so
so
cool.
I'm curious, like how long you've been this way all your life, and like of course
Yeah,
it took you back to a path, and you are where you are now. But like, how long has it taken you to evolve these skills to a point where you felt like you could offer them as a service? Like,
yeah,
when did you reach that confidence in yourself?
yeah. So, let's see. I really started opening up, I would say, like, 2017. I think that's when, yeah, 2017, I started to like go to full moon circles, start to dip into oracle cards. I was meditating in the mornings before I would go to work. Again, this was all because I was like so unhappy. And sometimes you need that polarity of like, oh my gosh, like, I don't want to feel this way, to really start to change. Um, and then 2018, I went and saw a medium, and the whole time I was there, I was shaking. And it was almost like I had the fever chills, like, when you're like kind of shaking the whole time, the whole hour. And then as soon as I walked out the door, it was fine. And what I feel like happened, is I was connecting to spirit, but physically my body couldn't hold the like energy and vibration that it requires to connect with that energy, because it's like, that's why you're called a medium, because you're meeting spirit halfway, and spirit is kind of coming down to meet you. um and so after that, I really started to dive in. So that was like 2018. I started to just learn all these different techniques. And then 2020, I think I started doing readings. My family friend was like, she's a Reiki healer, she loves all this stuff, and she was like, I want you to do a reading for me. I was like, okay. um and so I did a reading for her. She was like, that was so good, and sent me like all of her family members. So I started doing all of her family members, and I'm like, wow, okay, like, I think I'm ready to do this. And it kind of happened organically. um and I just was kind of, like I said, I always say this, but I was following the breadcrumbs, and people kind of just naturally came to my work. And it's just continued to grow ever since. So, but I kept it hidden for a long time. I was, when I first started my Instagram, I was doing more of like the meditation, yoga, Reiki route, and I wasn't really talking about the spiritual part of it. And then I think November of 2020, I finally was like, because I launched that right when COVID started. I was like, people need this service, people need help. Like I have tools to help them. So I started my Instagram account like, and I think April of 2020 or May, whenever all that stuff, March. And then by November, I was like, had my coming out as a psychic medium and like told everyone like, by the way, this is what I do. So
That's
it's been ever since.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, good for you. So, okay, so would the 2017 period be like what you call a spiritual awakening or
Yeah.
like the start of it?
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
talk
That
about
was,
breadcrumbs. So, like, what if someone else might be like, oh, really interested or like just getting started in this kind of a topic? You
yeah.
know, what are some of these breadcrumbs? Like, what might they see or hear? Or, you know, like, what are these little affirmations that they are on a path? And yeah, tell me more.
Yeah. So obviously everything is individual. I think with a spiritual awakening, kind of like I've talked about, there's the feeling of either anxiety or feeling off course or maybe depression, just feeling like you're not at the right place and you're not doing something like that you should be doing or that you want to be doing or that you desire to do, coupled with, so it's that feeling, but then it's also this feeling, this sensation of like I'm seeing more, I'm feeling more sensitive, like I'm just feeling people's energy a little bit more. I'm seeing synchronicities. I'm really experiencing like seeing people's auras or just having kind of supernatural experiences. And I think that tends to be like the spiritual awakening is like, again, these two parts of like not feeling great. And then also like, but I also feel really guided and there's something bigger that's happening. For me, like I said, I was unhappy at my job and then I would wake up and feel my grandma. So she had died when I was 8. I was like 23 at this point, and I would roll over and literally feel her next to me. And I would like to the point where I'd be like, hi, like kind of just saying hello. And it wasn't scary. It was really comforting. It was also kind of like, I don't know why this is happening, but
Mm-hmm.
love you. Like, thank you for your support and your guidance. Like, this is awesome. Um, and it was because I was meditating and doing yoga and doing all the things, like opening myself up to that realm. But it was, again, it's like that unhappiness and then the connection to something where you're like, okay, there's something going on here. And then I just, like I said, I went and saw that medium. I started pulling cards for myself every day. I started meditating. I went and did my yoga teacher training in Portugal and like spent like 3 weeks there. And that's when I would feel people's loved ones come through and like give them little readings and they'd be like, oh my God, that's so cool. So there was like all these little things that were happening along the way that ultimately led to me being like, all right, I think this is like what I need to do.
So cool.
Yeah.
I love it. I can't relate to like that extent, but for myself, like I hit the point of like postpartum depression with my
Mm,
son, and I was at like a very low point, kind of like questioning like where,
yeah.
what, like everything, what is going
Yeah.
on, and leaned into like holistic health. And
Mm,
I had been teaching yoga up until having kids, but I feel like yoga was kind of like my entry into
yes.
a lot of
Gateway.
this, you know? Um, but then like seeing repeating numbers or like getting
Yeah.
in the car and all of a sudden a song comes on the radio that like really hits me because it was like the song that was played at like my mom's funeral
Oh,
service, or like little reminders and things here and there like kept building, little breadcrumbs like you say, like they
yeah.
kept building and building. But then also I was having these weird like my ears were ringing all the
Mm,
time, for a few weeks, I would be like, what the heck? I smell cigarettes in the house.
Oh,
None of us are smokers. Like, why
yeah.
do I smell cigarettes? Just weird things that I just was like, okay, I'm leaning in. I just kept leaning into it
Yeah.
and then started like doing my own oracle and tarot and stuff and
Yeah.
meditating. And it's just like, it's such a nice, I don't know, I want to say foundation because
Mm.
life gets messy. And even if we are intuitive or connected or like strong in our sense of self, like life can sometimes come in there and kind of throw a boomerang at your face and
Yeah.
be like, check you, like, hey, what's going
Uh-uh.
on? And yeah, I mean, like, it's nice to have this foundation to like fall back on when you're
Yeah.
feeling like a little bit mixed up, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And I always say a spiritual awakening never ends. Like, I still go through periods where I'm like, "What am I doing with my life?" Like, not to the extent that I was. But I think it's natural for people on a spiritual path to question. And I think that's, like, what I took from what you were saying too, and it kind of, um, reminded me of, like, I think people who are spiritual are naturally people who question a lot. They question, like, again, like, what's the meaning of life? What am I here for? What am I doing? Like, and it's that deep questioning that leads to this continuous process of like, why am I doing the things that I'm doing? Is this because I want to do it? Is this because, again, the expectations? Is because this is out of fear? Like, you're always going to be questioning yourself in that way. But I think sometimes there has to be like an initiating either moment or experience where you end up somewhere that you don't want to be, or you're feeling a certain way, and that just changes how you look at things, and you're like, I need to start asking myself deeper questions.
Yeah, I love that. I definitely am that person that is like, what is the meaning of life? Like
Yeah, yeah,
constantly, what am I here to do? What's like, who am I here to serve?
yeah,
And like, honestly, a lot of times it just comes back to me being like, okay, reel it in and like focus on the here and now and try to be present. And I talked about that in a previous episode because as somebody who questions and has the whys so much, like, why is this happening? Everything happens for a reason. So, like,
yeah.
what is the deeper meaning of this? Sometimes it's
Mhm.
easy to get so caught up in all of that that you're losing sense of like the real meaning is just to sit right here and be
Yeah,
present with the people in front of you.
yeah, absolutely. And I think, yeah, I totally relate to that, because I think we can, like I said, as spiritual people, it's like you're continually asking the question of like, what am I doing? Why am I here? But it's also our jobs to create what we want to create. And that's the beautiful part of being human, is like we have a lot of power to create the reality that we want to create. And yeah, you need to ask those good questions to make sure you have the foundation for what you want to create. But it's, don't get stuck in the questioning. Make sure you're creating like the joy and the happiness and the peace and the abundance that you want to create, because that's ultimately like what our birthright is to really experience like these amazing things that life has to offer, and being equally challenged. So I think that's really beautiful. And something else I wanted to touch on too with you is like what you were saying about like smelling the cigarette smoke and the synchronicities and hearing your mom's song like from her funeral. Like, those are all psychic awarenesses, and that's you tapping into your psychic abilities. And I don't want you to dismiss the fact that like that was you connecting with spirit. That was you having your own unique experience of spirit. And um you don't need me to tell you that that was spirit. Like, I want you to be so confident in your experience that you're like, oh my God, like I just had this crazy experience. And all you have to do, like, to continue that is to continue to develop the skills to continue experiencing that. Like, the only thing that I've done, I guess, differently, if you will, is like learn how to continually develop that. Does that make sense? Like, I never want to disempower people to think like, oh, well, she's the medium, like, and yes, I have a gift. I'm not going to like take away from that, but I also want people to feel empowered that they can do that too. They can connect. I've taught people who have never given a reading, never done anything like that, and just kind of felt like, I just want to try this. And we're able to give readings to like multiple people and
That's
connect
awesome.
with loved ones. Yeah, it was so fun. She was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Like, so, and it's so fun. So I want people to know that like you are more than capable to connect with spirit, to have your own experience. And it's really beautiful. It's really, really amazing.
Thank you for saying that.
You're welcome.
I mean, thank you for saying it for our listeners, but like it's certainly something that I felt like I needed to hear too.
Yeah.
Um, I don't want to say like pedestaling, but I do think that that
Yeah.
is something that occasionally happens. Like we look up to some people, like people we follow on social media, and we kind of put them on a pedestal like, oh, I could never be that, like I could never
Yeah.
do that. But flipping the mindset of like they're an expander for me, like actually if they can do it, then so can I. Like
Yeah.
changing your mindset instead of like a place of lack, but to a place of like, look what's
Yeah.
possible is something that I also like really need to work on. And
Yeah. I think we all do.
yeah, I mean, society too, like definitely we're looking around every day. We're
Yeah.
scrolling the length of like the Eiffel Tower, isn't it something crazy? Like
No.
I heard that. I
Oh
might be
God.
wrong. I'll look it
That's
up, but
horrible.
like I know, just like scrolling and scrolling. And so we're constantly showing ourselves what is out there that
Yeah.
probably we don't have or that we like envy or that we want. And I think that can be like really disruptive sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's the thing. Uh, Unfortunately, society conditions us to take us out of our power, in a lot of cases, and not everything, but and I'm not somebody that like thinks society's out to get us. I think it's just that, we're made to kind of follow the rules and do things the way that it's been done, and that's what keeps you, again, this is what keeps you safe, this is what keeps you fed, and all those amazing things. But I think we've just, again, like reached this point in our society where we're able to choose differently, um because of social media, because of like all the technologies that are um available to us. So I think it's important, like, that we recognize that, like, if, like you said, if somebody else can do this, like, I can do it too. I just have to have the desire. And I think that's why, like, I'm really passionate about like sharing my story too, because I was total opposite side of the brain, like, took calculus 3 and thermodynamics and
Yeah.
all these crazy classes, and then just was like, decided to switch, and was like, this isn't going to work for me, and learn to develop something else. And it's just having this curiosity, to explore something and be open to something, and not putting pressure on yourself for it to be anything more than what it is, and just being like, like, let's see what happens. Where is this going to take me?
Yeah. And having the trust and a little bit of bravery too
Yeah.
to go that way. It's like it was brave of you, like you said, you weren't ready to tell people like the other services that you were
Yeah.
toning up, like tuning
Yeah.
up. Yeah. You weren't ready until you were like, okay, now I am. Now I am. And I'm just going to step out of fear and I'm just going to put it out there. And then look at you now.
Yeah. I mean, it was very, that was an emotional roller coaster. Even when I was developing, I was living with my sister. I hid it from her for months. Like, and then I finally one day, my mom and I are super close. My mom had like picked me up from something, and I started crying. I was like, I have to tell you something. And she was like, what? I'm like, I've been like connecting with, like, her brother passed away, her mom, her dad, and I was like, I've been connecting with all of them like through mediumship, and I've been developing my psychic abilities. She started crying. She's like, that's
Oh,
amazing. Like, that's so, like, what do they say? She was like asking me all these questions. It was so
that is
cute.
amazing.
Yeah. So, and I'm very blessed that I have a family that is super supportive and is like, and even like my dad, he's open. He doesn't get it, but he'll call me and be like, how are your readings? What's going on? So I'm definitely lucky that I have that. But yeah, I think everyone experiences it when you first start, because you sound crazy. You're like, I literally sound like a crazy person. I'm talking to dead people and like connecting to weird things, like what's going on. But I think as long as you remember that your experience is your experience and only you can say like whether it's true or not, and just keep listening to yourself and it feels real to you, then listen to that. Nobody can really say otherwise.
So, as somebody who can connect and like that's very open, this I could see being a fear. For some reason, it's not really a fear of mine, or maybe it is subconsciously, but like,
Yeah.
what about things that mean harm or like harmful messages or things that could come through that are not good?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not going to be naive and say like, oh yeah, there's no bad things out there, like but I think again it's and kind of like what you and I were talking about before we started recording, it's about intention. So before I connect with anyone before a reading, I'm very intentional about the prayer that I say. I always say like, I'm only available to give loving and healing messages, things that are going to be for their highest good, for their highest path. And if there is something like negative, or like there was one person I remember, and I had a feeling like her husband was going to lose his job, but I didn't say that to her because I'm like, I don't feel like that's helpful. There's definitely an art to delivering messages of like things like that, where you're like, okay, I feel like there could be something like that's a challenge or hard coming up. And the way I worded it was like, I got this information that he might be losing his job in February, but that by September he would be starting his own business and it would be like really great and he'd love it. So I said, I see there being like a challenge in like February with his work. I don't know what that is. And then in September it'll be figured out. He might be doing something on his own. Like I just kind of worded it where it was a little bit more gentle. And that's my style, because I just want people to feel good when they leave. I don't want people to be like, oh God, he's going to lose his job. And what? Like, I would never want somebody to walk out of my reading feeling that way. But yeah. And even like I went to a restaurant one time and the waiter, I felt like there was something wrong with his heart. And I was like, oh God. So I went up to him at the end and I was like, I just think you need to go get your heart checked. I'm a medium. He was like, oh my God, thank you so much for telling me. I don't know what happened. But yeah, so there are things that can come up, but again, it's how you look at it, how you embrace it and how you deliver it. But for people that want to connect and are afraid because they think like something bad could happen, it's you have to know that you are so protected. Like I know I am very protected, and that I have a team of people around me at all times that are not going to let anything in that's going to negatively affect me. And everyone listening, you are like that, I promise. Like unless you want to connect with something like that, you will. But if your intention is to connect with only good things, you will connect with good things. And that's part of that power. And knowing that you're powerful and your words and your thoughts have powerful intention behind them, you will be fine. You can always call on, if you are skeptical or if you feel like I just need some help, you can always call on Archangel Michael. He is a wonderful guide for everyone. He's like, I call on him every day, just to protect yourself.
So I feel like I'm asking questions, maybe I'm so curious, but then also from like the listener's perspective too. Will spirit or like will they connect with you only if you're ready for the message? So you might think it's not working or like you're not hearing the answer you need to hear. But then could that come back to well, you're not ready to hear this or you don't have the space to hear this right now type of a situation?
100%.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, all the time. Even there's stuff that I'm like, why won't you just tell me? Like there's things I'm like, if I could just know this, then I could do this. And it's like, if they gave us all the answers, what's the point of life?
Totally. I had that vision earlier where you were talking about the soul contract, and I'm like, wouldn't it be nice if literally we were just like handed this piece of paper and it's like,
The handbook.
here's what you need to do.
I love that. Yeah, for sure. And that's part of that. It's funny you say that. It's like that would literally take the whole point of life out of the
Yeah.
game. So it's partly being patient, and sometimes you'll hear a message like sooner than you want to. Like there's been things where I'm like, oh God, like why did I need to know that? Like, or not even that I needed to know that, but then it's like, it's almost like sometimes I hear something and I'm like, oh my God, I have to take action right away. I have to do this, this, and this. And it's like, all right, slow down. Sometimes those intuitive messages are for you to know, and take your time with it. Like, I think, and this is something I've been thinking a lot about. So it's interesting you're asking me this, is like how our instant gratification culture is impacting us like spiritually, because we think, because I heard a message right now, I need to go and move to wherever tomorrow. And it's like, no, sometimes like you hear a message at the perfect time, so you can either get your mind behind it and get yourself like on board with that message, or they're not telling you because you need to wait, and you need to develop some things in the background before you take that next step.
Boom. There's like the quote for the episode right there. Like, but for real, I think the instant gratification thing is huge. I
Yeah.
mean, sure, some of us experience it. Some of us have rapid success. Some of us
Yeah.
have that. Yeah. I think for those that are listening that are like entrepreneurs, they might resonate more with the opposite, which is like, okay, I had this idea, I took some action on it, and then it's like, man, I'm still like, it's 2 years later and I feel like a tugboat, and I'm trying and I'm trying and I'm trying, and like sometimes the burnout comes into play, right? But it's like, keep your eye on the beacon of light in the distance, because there's so much to see and learn and grasp again in the present, like in the present moment. And I mean, I even had like an adult sized temper tantrum yesterday about this, because I'm like, I'm 2 years, little over 2 years into my business and starting my own interior design firm. And it's like, sometimes I just have these moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like such an imposter. I have so much more to learn. I have like this vision of where I want to take my company, but it sometimes feels so far off in the distance. But I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to give up on it, but it doesn't mean it's not hard. Like, there are moments where it's really hard because you're not getting that instant gratification. Sometimes you need to work hard. I would say, like, if you're burning out to the extent that you're putting your own health in jeopardy, then that's a different story. But I really like that you brought that up. At least that felt like a message. Perfect timing for me.
It's funny because as you were starting to talk about what you're experiencing, what I kept hearing was like, you need to get out of your own way.
Oh, dang.
I was like, and then you started talking about how everything that you were talking about, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I feel like you intuitively, I feel like what you're experiencing is like, yeah, you just needing to like get out of your own way. You needing to like, for you, it's almost like for some reason, do you want me to do this for you?
Do it. I mean, I wasn't going to ask because I felt like that was kind of taboo to be like, give me a reading. Like, I want to pay you for your services, what you do.
Intuitive. I'll just give you a couple little things. So, what I'm intuitively feeling is like you have a little bit of like I'm hearing like a filter. Like I keep seeing like a filter over your eyes, and you're feeling like you need to be this way. You need to do this thing. You need to like there's this expectation of needing to do all these external things, and that's what's gonna shift your business. But what I feel like you're really being asked to do right now is come back to like, and this sounds so cheesy, but like your truest desire of what you want your business to be, and come back to that place and share from that place. Like, and I do this too. It's like you because you're like, I just want more people to see my work. I want more people to, you're wanting all of the things. But in that, you're becoming somebody else to be that person for other people, rather than leading from, I know if I just share from my heart, the right people are going to find my work. The right people are going to come to me, and I won't even have to try that hard. And that's the beautiful thing about like when you kind of master your intuition and manifestation, is like, I know if I just be who I am, share truly from my heart what I'm feeling and what I'm expressing in this moment, I'm going to find exactly the right people there, and it's going to just come to me. Like, I don't even know how it's going to happen. I could meet them at the store. I could like, and I think we put a lot of pressure on like social media and all these things and avenues. And it's like, no, sometimes it's like you just, when you emit a certain frequency, that's what's going to bring the people in.
I was just going to say that. Like, it was making me think of when you're at the right frequency, you attract
Yeah,
people at the same frequency, right?
100%.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And
You're welcome.
it's interesting. So I did like my own tarot reading yesterday, basically like after I was feeling like, rah,
Yeah.
I'm so frustrated.
Yeah.
But it was essentially like the desire and the setback and like this resolution, or like how, how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And what it came down to, I mean, I put it in my journal, which is right here. So I'm just going to open it up.
No, I love it.
Maybe. um, so like the hurdle, the setback is judgment, was the judgment card. So very much like,
yeah,
literally I wrote, take off the lenses of self-interest.
Oh, I got the chills. That's how I'm like, I kept going like this.
Yes, take off the lenses. I swear this is written in my journal right here. I can like show for those who watch on YouTube. It is
That's a
like
trip.
right there.
Okay, so and this is, oh my God, this is so wild. So this is such a good confirmation of what I do, because you already knew everything I told you. Yeah. Everything I said was not new. You wrote that yesterday. So what I'm doing is just confirming all of the messages that you already get. And it's just, sometimes, and I do this too, I go get readings every 2 to 3 months. So I get it. But like sometimes we just need somebody else to be like, yep, everything that you're getting is right. And then you're like, all right, well, thank you. It's
the
like
peanuts. It's like the peanuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
it's like everything you already know. Yeah, that's so cool. I love that happened.
Well, me too. So much. And while we're recording an episode, like how great. Okay, so this is a great transition. How can people work with you? Where can they find you?
Yeah.
And then like specifically, so you do readings, you can connect to loved ones, but also you can coach them. So tell us a little more.
Yeah, so I do psychic medium readings, and that's like if you want to connect with a loved one, if you want me to just kind of like tell you what's going on in your life. I have single sessions like that. You can work with me more in like a package setting too. So I do psychic medium readings, I do Akashic record readings, and then I do Reiki. So it's like a 3 package session. So that's more of like the coaching container where I'm helping you identify blocks, helping you connect to spirit. And it's more so that we can work through certain things that you're just going through in life right now, and using spirit to an energy to really move through that. I hopefully people can see, like, just from what I did right now, my style is even like, I'm not necessarily telling you well, I do sometimes tell you exactly what you need to do, but it's more of, again, like asking yourself deeper questions, like getting you to look at things from a different perspective than what your logical mind might tell you to do. Like in terms of your business, I was kind of like, okay, stop putting the lens on being somebody else and be who you are. Like, that's my style. And then I also have a new program coming out. It's called The Intuitive Self. I'm launching it with my friend Brenda. I'm super excited. She's awesome. Her and I met, we were both on a podcast at like one after another. And they were like, I feel like you guys need to meet because we both have very similar styles. And her and I became friends, and I did a reading for her and helped her open to her intuition. So now and she does like plant medicine and manifestation. So her and I are launching a program. It's called The Intuitive Self. We're super excited. She's also a STEM girly. So she was like a she either has her master's or PhD in chemistry, left it all behind to start her manifestation coaching business. So her and I are going to be teaching a 6-week program together to help you tap into your intuition, help you to understand like what your voice of fear is, what your ego is, and how to really create a life that you actually like want to live, and not that you're expected to live. So
that's incredible.
That.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank
that's
you.
Very
yeah, it'll be super fun.
Okay, when is it live? Like, when does it launch?
Yeah, so it launches September. Hold on, we changed the date. September 20. Let's see. September 19th will be the first like class, and then we'll launch like that week before. But if anyone's interested, just shoot me a message if you're listening before that date, and I can give you some more info and get you on the wait list, or if it's during launch, send you the link to join. But yeah,
I'll put all that info I can put that in the show notes too. Share all your details. What is your Instagram handle?
It's at The Intuitive Tessa. So it's THEINTUITIVETESSA.
All right. I'm so pleased with this episode.
It was so fun. It was so funny too, because before, what I kept hearing, like the theme for your listeners was about like success. And really, and it's funny because I think that's kind of what I picked up on with you, is like defining your true definition of success and what that looks like for you, and not basing it off of anyone else's success or what they think success is. It's about truly asking yourself, like, what does success look and feel like for me?
Yeah, totally. I love that. That's resonating with me, like for the listeners, but very much like this was a therapy session. So thank you, Tessa.
You're welcome. A lot of people say that. A lot of people cry on my couch, but that's okay.
I mean, I was ready. Like, there were moments for sure. So
yeah, it's healing. It's good.
So open and
it's good to cry.
Yes. Oh, I did plenty yesterday. Like I said, I had an adult-sized temper tantrum. Like, why?
That's hilarious.
But we're allowed to have those today. I feel much better. Sometimes you just need a release,
100%.
And then look at the beautiful message that I was ready to hear today. Because
it all happens in divine timing, let me tell you.
Yes. Okay, well, we could just keep going and going. So I'm going to end this recording. Thank you, listeners. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.